Welcome to the Fiscally Awesome Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Gardner, co-founder and CEO of Highline. Today we have a very engaging conversation with Robby Riggs. Robby is the co-founder of The Bridge. Robby's got some awesome perspective on the consulting business, building and scaling organizations, and leadership. So let's dive into it. All right, Robby, welcome to the Fiscally Awesome Pod, man. Thanks for joining us today.
Matt, couldn't be more excited to be here. It's been a long time coming. We've been chatting about this for a while and observing you from afar, watching these videos, listening to these pods. It's been awesome.
Yeah, Robby had a special request to record this one in person, and we should be able to do this because while he's not born and raised upstate New York, he does live quite close to me. And if we had the infrastructure to do so, we'd start recording them live. So thank you for being a good sport and doing a remote.
Hey, you got to join me in the home office today. I got to bring all my children to the recording, so can't complain.
Yeah, Bethany. Well, after that, Bethany's got to give me like a whole setup that I can like wheel around so we can do this remotely.
That's right.
Okay, man. So let's do it. Let's just do like some context setting for everybody. Like who's Robby Riggs? What's your story, man? Where you from? What have you done in your career?
It's a long, winding, twisting road. I'll be as succinct as possible. But I started my career, born and raised in Oklahoma, spent all my time down south, and started my career in Dallas. I've been a career consultant. So started my career in big consulting and have been there since. I'm married to medicine. My wife's an orthopedic surgeon. So we got married very young. So moving with her all through her medical journey, and have had offices in St. Louis and Chicago, in Boston and Philadelphia, and ultimately ended up here in upstate New York, which is obviously how you and I connected. But my focus of my career has been helping organizations through large changes. And I grew up in a very entrepreneurial household. My pops started and sold multiple companies. I love to give him a hard time that he's the only entrepreneur to have 3 exits and make no money. Dad, I'm sure you're sorry for out the world. And so when I helped open Solid Consulting's Boston office, now, which was they're a regional consulting firm. They kind of have a local model. And that was an incredible experience learning how to build a consulting business. This was in 2012. It was an incredible opportunity. And through that process, I met my co-founder, Ken Wilkins, and he and I decided we wanted to start our own. So starting what was called Sana Consulting in January of 2014 and grew that over the years. Ended up scaling, bringing on an executive team, and what became The Bridge, which is what we are today. And we transitioned to The Bridge. We're about 250 employees globally, have offices all over the world. And we just recently, very exciting, Matt, we just recently sold our company to North Highland. So we're now part of the North Highland family. I could not be more exciting.
This is like hot off the press news.
We are breaking news today. We're breaking news. So it's been awesome. And along that journey, thank you. Along that journey, I learned a lot about what it is to transform from an entrepreneur into an executive. And that has been in its own right, was a very tumultuous journey. Learned a lot, and kind of in the middle there, decided to take on the adventure of writing a book with my dad, who I lovingly and jokingly called Pops. He and I wrote a book about the critical role that leadership plays in the chaotic 4-generation workplace. And Matt, I know you were right in the middle of this when there was the millennial problem. We were going to destroy the planet and the earth, and everything was terrible. We wanted to show up on Monday in flip-flops and be CEO on Friday, and all the ridiculous isms that are being
flip-flops on right now. So no hating on
because you're a proper millennial. We started investigating that problem, and he and I were seeing it from all different points of view. Me in the consulting work that I was doing as a millennial, and he as a boomer in the work that he was doing. And so we came together and wrote that first leadership book by father-son, boomer millennial, counter mentor leadership, and had a ton of success off of that. We're fortunate enough to win some awards and really dug into, and that was the catalyst for me around how to drive more effectively that transition from entrepreneur to executive. So got to be that right in the middle of my career while building companies and helping our clients through big changes.
That's cool. Okay. So you grew up in Tulsa, right? Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah,
so Tulsa and Syracuse, one's obviously a lot warmer, but similar size cities-ish.
Yeah.
Right?
So we're nice, similar vibe. Yeah. Kind of that blue collar, really great people, high character people, which is why when we moved to upstate 6 years ago, it felt so familiar. It felt so comfortable. And this is home now. We are very much consider ourselves Central New Yorkers.
Yeah, that's cool. And you, along the way, so Boston, right? Boston was a big stop for you guys. That's where Cassie did medical school.
She had her residency there. She had medical school
Residency.
in St. Louis, and then we had residency in Boston, which had an incredible impact on us. That there was so many memories from our time there, professionally and personally. Love, love, love. Boston is still my favorite world city.
Yeah.
I'm not going to break out my amazing Boston accent on the pod. I don't want to break in, so many clicks and listens.
Okay. So let's talk about the bridge, man. So consulting can mean a lot of things to people, right? So like break it down. What does the bridge do better than anybody else? What makes you guys special?
It's a great question. I'm going to zoom out slightly to give that idea of what the consulting industry is. Because to your point, people hear consulting, you hear everything from eye roll to Jedi mind tricks to, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse on this pod, to total garbage, bull, crud.
So bullshit. Yeah.
It's total bullshit here. So there's really three, when you think about the three different flavors of consulting, you have high-end strategy consulting, where that CEO has a big pricing problem, people problem, or design problem, whatever it is. They're going to call a McKinsey, BCG, Bain, one of those. If it's more process, maybe AlixPartners, but it's a very high-end. We always joke about the output is a $3 million binder. A lot of great stuff in it, but it's not really actionable necessarily. And they don't really help you get into it. On the other extreme, you have the getting in and implementing big systems, what we would call systems integrators. So you're implementing SAP or Oracle, and they're going to come in, they're going to bring an army of people. It's going to be 75 people in your office helping you implement this technology. So those are really the two extremes. And our objective was you're going to get all the corny bridge puns today. I just want to make sure you know. Our objective is to bridge the gap between those two. So we want to lead with strategy, lead with helping you not be a hammer looking for a nail, but really diagnose and understand very specifically, bespoke for you, what is your problem? What should the solution be? And then actually implement, and primarily driven through technology solutions. So when we think about the what, it's defining the problem, working strategically as an advisor, but then bridging the gap to execution. And that's where we have keyboard developers all over the world that can provide us, our clients, a low-cost option to scale development. We have a very, very deep expertise in data and artificial intelligence and the machine learning, which is kind of the gap between those two. Our studio practice, our experts in user-centered and experience design and the product ownership and how to do that well in an organization. And then we ultimately have what we call our acceleration practice, which really sits underneath all of that to be an enabler, an accelerator to get you to value faster. So that's the what we do. That's our flavor of it. And we've been able to really win by putting the human back into consulting. And what's so interesting, Matt, as you are very well versed in, technology plays such a critical role. And coming out of the pandemic, there became this malaise in the consulting industry where we didn't do a lot of the things we used to do, which was get together in a room, build real relationships, and solve real problems. It became this transactional, almost robotic relationship. And not surprisingly, coming out of COVID, everybody had this PPP money and the economy spiked, really spurred through that. And then the consulting industry has been going down ever since. And we believe a big part of that is we've taken the humanity out of what we do and made it transactional. And our objective, since we really transformed into the bridge in August of 23, has been about putting the human back into consulting. And we've seen incredible, incredible results.
So just to frame it for everybody listening, it's like, what's your target market? Like your Fortune 500 size companies, that's where you want to be?
We do. Yeah. Typically that, 800 million to 10 billion is kind of our sweet spot. And we're continuing to run up that curve the bigger we get, because it allows us to have more scale so we can solve bigger problems. But that's typically our sweet spot, is in that Fortune 500, Fortune 50 to Fortune 500. The Fortune 50 are kind of where we're aspiring to get to.
Aspiring to be. So, okay. So our whole business is SMB, right? A lot of the people who probably listen to this are like SMB, like what? So I've even, as an operator in the SMB market, like how the hell do you even get into that Fortune 500 space, Robby? You just decided you wanted to penetrate it and you just went out and you made it happen? Or did you just happen to be right place, right time early in your career? And that's just what you learned? Like, how did you go from, that's just where you're going to play?
Yeah. I mean, when we started Sanasano, Ken and I, it was all about that SMB. I mean, it was the $1 billion, the $350 million, right? That was where we were operating and growing. And Matt, this answer is terrible. And all the listeners are going to be giving me the big eye rolls there, listening to this on the treadmill. New year, new you. The answer is relationships. I mean, we brought in great leaders, great technologists, people that are really pushing the envelope and have been developing cutting edge solutions at larger companies, which have bigger clients. And they then bring that relationship capital, that experience capital to the bridge. And, the Children's Hospital in Dallas, which is one of the premier children's hospitals in the world, said, your leader, we saw that she is working for you now. We want to talk to the bridge. And it was all through that relationship. And then that gets you in the door, but then you have to deliver. And that's really been our objective, is to look, life is way too short for work to suck. So we want the experience for our people internally, but also for the experience our clients have with us. We don't want it to suck. So we really invest in, again, putting the human back into that relationship.
So I want to start with, give me an example of a problem, like all the things that you guys do. What's a real world problem that a company of that scale has? And bear in mind that I'm going to have you try to help make that relatable for
Yes.
an SMB, like somebody with less than 100 employees, like some of the things you see at these very, very big companies that also exist way downstream too. They're common. They're bigger problems the bigger you get, but they're still fundamentally the same problems. So
let's pick on Matt, what I think is a hot topic, and that everyone listening has thought about. It's kept them up at night. They've woken up thinking about it, and that's AI.
Yep.
All the jokes around AI. I love all of them and use them all the memes, make it in every one of my sales presentations. And this idea that artificial intelligence is going to solve every problem is something that, we just had, I think I have it here in my office. The latest HBR is all about how AI can transform our organization. I mean, it is everywhere. And the conversation right now we're having with clients, big and small, again, we service and have SMB clients. It's about, what can AI do for me? And there is this misconception, this misnomer, that AI will just solve all of your problems. So for a very large alcohol distribution company that we're working with, their objective is to leverage AI to get more out of their data. And this problem of how you can just stack AI on top of something and it's going to solve everything or give you these great insights is an outcome people, organizations, large and small, want to solve. So in this case, they wanted to figure out how to buy smarter. And they had a bunch of technology, very disparate systems, don't talk to one another. And they think, the Band-Aid is to just lay this technology over the top and AI will solve our problem. And of course, that's not the answer. There is so much hard work that has to be done to ensure that your data is harmonized, it's cohesive, it's in a single place, such that then we can layer in the intelligence, the machine learning and the intelligence, to give you incredible insights that will allow you to make smarter decisions. That's the same problem that an SMB organization that's grown from 1,000 orders a week to 7,000 orders a week and is now going, my spreadsheets are breaking. Can AI solve the problem? Right? It's the same idea. And the biggest piece of advice, the biggest thing that I've learned, am I an AI expert? By no means, but I'm really fortunate to have some really, really, really smart people that I get to work with every day. The number one thing that I've learned is that you have to do two things. Number one, you have to put a fence around what data are you wanting to take advantage of. And whether that's in Excel or some sort of new age database on AWS or Azure or Snowflake or Databricks or, buzzword, we're going to put a fence around this data and we're going to ensure that it is cleansed, right? It's clean because it's going to be garbage in, garbage out. That data is cleansed and we understand the problem you're trying to solve such that we can then write the algorithms to be able to help you solve that problem. And most people, Matt, at companies huge and small, just read some article on Forbes or Fortune or HBR and decide, AI can solve that for me. And look, I don't believe AI is going to replace everyone every single day, all the time. I believe that AI is going to be able to be an incredible accelerator, and you have to understand the value it can add for your business. I mean, as you know, at Highland, what you all have done with technology is incredible, and how you've been able to accelerate and enable your teams and your clients to do more. It's the same problem that we're helping organizations solve every day.
Yep. So when you're big, like Fortune 500 companies, some of your big clients, right? Do you have to break the business to fix it? Like when you go in there, do you have to break it? Because it's so established.
Yes, it's such a good question. And honestly, it's a really smart way to ask the question, but it's one that we can't ask at the Fortune 500. Okay, let's take a step back. Think about the ethos or the archetype of Fortune 500 VP of IT. Just let's pick on that persona. Yep. That individual, if they hear break your business, all they hear is, how am I going to convince my boss this is going to be disruptive? It's going to cost more than we think, but eventually we'll get there. There'll be something wonderful, right? That's been the problem with implementing big technology packages like SAP and Oracle for decades. And what we like to do is go in and help them understand, this is your big problem. Let's go in and show value quickly where we can earn the trust of your boss and your boss's boss to enable us to go in, break parts of the business. But your point is spot on. In order for us to get these organizations where they want to go, we often have to take that step back. And again, AI, the big disservice that it's played in the marketplace is that it has become this silver bullet, this cheat code where I can jump from C to A and skip step B, right? Or F to A and skip DC, B and all the way up. So that has been a real challenge where we've had to do quite a bit of, I'll just say, education in the market, helping people understand the value of AI is truly untapped, and all the new buzzwords that are coming out. It feels like every year there's this new wave of what the technology is able to do through different pieces, whether it's, setting up RAGs or agentic technology, again, other buzzwords. But what I'm learning is setting very clear expectations and giving the client a real understanding of how we can get there. But we don't want to slap a Band-Aid on a broken bone and make you look good for, a week or a month or a quarter. Let's really transform the way that you look at and leverage data and the processes around data such that you can get the real value and unlock the real value of.
They're getting better. It comes with surgery. You got to perform surgery, but it sounds like you have to play probably some politics to get yourself clear to be able to do what you really need to be able to do.
That is the big difference. That is the biggest difference between selling to SMB and selling to Fortune 5.
Yep.
It's a very political game.
Yeah. So for a small business, let's say you got 100 employees, the benefit of having nothing, like I have no data infrastructure, I have very little systems, versus I have 30 years in hundreds of people managing my data and systems. Do you think small businesses have a big advantage with AI and data to start from square one and accelerate very quickly compared to some of the big companies that potentially it will take a very long time to turn that tugboat?
Oh, yes, 100%. And beginning with the end in mind and having someone in your organization or having an advisor that can help you understand, hey, this is where you want to get to. So let's make some smart moves on the chessboard. That's not, all the cheesy metaphors. Let's not paint ourselves into a corner or whatever as we build what we want to do. And, tools like QuickBooks and Excel can be great foundational systems that you can either feed data into another system or eventually, pull data over to fully to be your source system. So there is a real advantage there. The advantage that the Fortune 500 have is they do have 30 years of history. So once you cleanse and get that data in a data set that's, I'll call it mineable, right? We can go in, put the algorithms against, have the agents really start learning. That's where they're an advantage, because then we can learn from that 30 years of history and start being more predictive and bringing in other resources to make it predictive.
On one hand, on one hand, it's like, shit, I got to spend 18 months to fix it so that I can use AI to get all the insights I want. But I got the history. For a small business, easy to set it up, but it's going to take you 18 months to build any meaningful history to do anything with it. So I guess you're kind of in the same place, but I do think this is this really unique opportunity for small businesses to be highly disruptive to the big players in the markets.
Could not agree more. And I believe there's a real opportunity, because like every small business, we all grow. And when we first start, it's very simple, right? We sell one product, we have one type of customer, and we deliver one way. Fast forward 5 years, we've quadrupled in size. We now have 8 customers and 4 product types that we deliver in 5 different ways. I mean, think about it from your perspective with accounting systems. And before we did very simple terms. We did things the same way. It was a monthly payment. Now all of a sudden we're doing time and materials. We have 4 different billing cycles a month. That complexity. So as you're going to grow into that, if you've already set your systems up in a way to be extensible and flexible, and you can govern that data as soon as you begin, you are way ahead of the curve and have the opportunity to really slingshot up the value curve. However, most companies just go, oh, we're just getting bigger. Let's just add another row in Excel. Let's just add another tab in Excel. Let's just
Or another person.
Let's use the notes feed, right? And that's where trouble comes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I know it's very buzzy, as you said. AI is buzzy.
Yes.
That many people have a lot of experience that are accessible to the average Joe to actually know the use case for it.
Yeah.
And there's many leaders I find lack the skill to introduce new disruptive technologies well to organizations. So in the small business market, which is where we work, I think that's the challenge, is you kind of got to learn how to do a little bit of change management. You got to kind of learn how to be kind of a data guru. Like, these are just skills I think inherently you're going to have as an entrepreneur, versus there's like separate business units that exclusively do that. I think you're going to have to learn how to do a lot more as an individual. But it's not like to get it started, it's not expensive.
No. It's organizations like yours that are bridging that gap for companies that can bring in that expertise and that perspective. And you don't have to go spend $300,000 bringing in a data scientist, to sit on your team, but you have great tools that are targeted for small business. You have very scalable technologies like AWS and Azure, where you can put information and data in the cloud and you're only charged for what you use. So we are in a moment where it is very accessible. And because these technologies have become so mainstream, there's been so many great books and podcasts and blog posts and things written on, okay, where do I start? So that's the benefit for any small business owner who says, okay, I know I'm going to scale. I see a path here to 10X in the next 5 years or 10 years. I want to make sure that I don't paint myself into the corner. What do I do? Again, this is where the internet is our friend, and you can really hear from leading voices that are writing in a way that's really understandable. It's not all technical jargon that you're not going to get. There's been some really, really, really good stuff published that can help you get smart quickly.
Yep. All right, last question on the bridge before we start talking about the book. So how big are you guys now? So 250 employees, like you went from 0 to approximately how much in revenue? You don't have to any question.
When we started, it was just my co-founder and I. We brought on our first team member in 2017, and we scaled from 1 in 17 to 250 and 24 at the end of 24. We have the fun part has been just growing, building the offices, having a presence in Dallas, Denver, Chicago, Boston, in Ecuador, in India. I mean, having those markets all over. And now with our brothers and sisters at North Highland now truly having scale to where we're at, 33,000, 3,200 people globally with offices all over the world. It's really, really exciting because it's going to allow us to do what we do great, which is technology consulting, with what North Highland does great, which is the people consulting, the change and transformation from a business perspective. We're really excited.
Yeah, that's cool, man. And you did some of your growth before your transaction. You did it through M&A, right? Like, you've ramped that up quite a bit over the last 18 to 24 months.
The last 12 months have been insane. We did 4 acquisitions in the last 12 months, all small organizations. The largest one, I think, had 30 people. So that was an education in and of itself. And then running through the process of selling the organization, doing a transaction, again, I feel like I had a PhD in business. I mean, it was all these terms that I'd kind of read about or, saw in Succession or whatever it was, and actually got to live it and learn it. So it was an incredible education.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Well, it sounds
like the summary, Matt, for everyone listening, the small business owners out there, they're like, hey, I've been looking at this acquisition. What do I want to do? I want to be super, super clear. The people that is the most important part. And I don't care if you're selling widgets or professional services, the people are who is going to be accountable for making you become one. And for you to maximize your value, it's all about investing in people and really getting in and under the covers of the target organization's culture to know if it's going to be disruptive or not.
All right, man. Well, it sounds like the bridge is going to be kicking ass in 2025 moving forward, man. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
So we're going to take the bridge hat off, Robby. We're going to put the author hat on, Robby. We're going to talk about Counter Mentor Leadership, the book you wrote with your dad.
I feel like I need to get my glasses on so I look smart for this conversation.
So whose idea was it? Was it you or was it your pops?
It was the pops, actually. I got to give him the credit. It's supposed to be very uncomfortable giving him credit for anything. But no, it was his idea. He came to me. He and I were arguing. This was Thanksgiving of 2014 or 2015. We were arguing about, was it the boomers' fault or the millennials' fault? And that Thanksgiving argument spilled over to the evening football game. And we're taking shots at each other while watching football.
I mean, the answer is it was the boomers' fault.
Well, obviously, that's just anyone with any sort of sense about them knows it was the boomer part. So that next morning, he was like, hey, man, I think there might be something here because we agree it isn't a boomer or millennial problem. It's a lack of leadership problem. I mean, that's the real problem. And we talked about it and started kicking around ideas, started outlining what we thought could be interesting. And I told him the one thing that I will not do is write another boring leadership book. With all due respects to the incredible authors that have written hundreds of thousands of leadership books over the last 30 years, I refuse to write one that I felt like I had to grind through. I'm a little bit OCD. I start a book, I have to finish it. So I said, hey, let's read something that's engaging, consumable, that's sarcastic, that's funny. And so throughout the book, he and I argue boomer and millennial. And we wrote it in a way that our idea was, I was living in Boston at the time, that I want to be able to listen to a chapter on the train on the way to the office. That was our idea. So it's very easy to read, consumable chapters that you can get through quickly. And we had a ton of fun researching it and writing it. And it's been thankfully well received, and I had a lot of fun talking about it over the last few years.
That's cool. Yeah, what is the definition of counter mentor leadership? I think you've said it, but if you had to define it, how do you define it?
We use those three words very intentionally. So we wanted to start with this traditional idea of leadership. We really believe anchors back to a guy named Frederick Winslow Taylor, who in 1911 wrote a book called The Principles of Scientific Management. And that really was proliferated through World War I and World War II, because all these leaders that were that were blue chip Ivy League leaders became leaders in the military through the two wars. And so it became this command and control. When I say jump, you say how high. He actually says in his book, he's talking in a manufacturing setting. And he says, if you were so phlegmatic and stupid as to be a pig iron handler, you don't deserve or are not good enough to have an opinion. Which again, in that moment, the pig iron handler had a third grade education. He couldn't read, he couldn't write. So I'm not saying that he was wrong, but when we try to describe that or apply that to the people that work for you and me, highly educated, very, very well read and well written, to try and treat them like that is a disaster. And we found that because there is no education, there's no other way to do it. We knew that it needed to be done counter to the way that it's always been. So we wanted to use that word counter, and it was really underscored by kind of the double meaning of it. When you're have an employee that's younger than you, they had a different education and experience than you did. So there is so much you can learn from them. And the idea of being a counter mentor, of having someone mentor you that's younger than you, goes against kind of the traditional ethos of mentoring. And Jack Welch at GE was the first one to really coin the phrase reverse mentoring, when he told his top 300 executives to go learn about that internet thing. And so that's really when this first came out. The kids. Yeah. So that's where the idea of counter mentor came from. It was recognizing that as a leader, it's my job to own the relationship with that individual, but it's also my job to understand his or her perspective such that I can help them negotiate the obstacles that are in front of them. And that's really where we get into. And I think what sets our methodology, the way that we teach leadership apart, is there's this idea that you can't be friends with someone that you lead. That's complete garbage. Leadership is born out of a relationship. And that's been proven over and over and over and over. And the relationship that I have with you is I earn the right to influence you, right? I don't want to lease by people's skills. I want them to be owners. And that's a mindset that they have. And I have to earn that. That doesn't happen overnight just because I write you a paycheck and you sign an offer letter. So it was really shifting that and helping leaders of all shapes and sizes recognize on your team in 2025, you're going to have Gen Z, Millennial, X, and Boomers on your team. I mean, Matt, I know you very specifically, you have people on your team that are all in that range. And you as the leader are responsible for understanding their unique perspective and owning that relationship. And that's what we lean into. And we've been fortunate enough to work with clients all over the world in every industry, from government and military to SMB and everything in between, helping them to build more effective leaders, which drive higher levels of profitability, higher levels of safety, lower turnover, all the things that we care about.
So you think about like our kids. I think they call it Gen Alpha. Are they Gen Alpha?
I think they should be Generation D for COVID, but no one's listening to me.
Think about like when they're going to grow up with AI in their pocket or on their glasses or wherever it's going to be in their life.
Eventually in their brain. That's
in their brain. Think about what that's going to be like when they get introduced to the workforce and they have a very different perspective on what it is like to be efficient and leverage technology to the fullest extent to make your life as easy and convenient as possible. How do the principles in your book, do you think, apply to that? Like that's coming no matter what.
100%. And, our methodology, it's actually counters an acronym. We beat that one to death. But the O and the U are own the relationship and understand the perspective. So I think it's going to be leaning in and learning from them. The reality is that new perspective is being brought in every day. There's an awesome book called Humility is the New Smart. And it's a couple of PhDs from Darden at the University of Virginia. But they talk about the value we as humans are going to play in the value chain moving forward is empathy and humility and EQ, right? The ability to connect with another human. And they basically say in the book that old smart, the ability to recall from the tests you and I took as kids, what are the state capitals, do algebra, all those things. If you were good at those, that was old smart. Well, in the book, they say that old smart is the new stupid, because guess what? You can't do it faster than a computer. You can't do it faster than Jarvis. So our being
smart to try.
Exactly. And so our smart is going to be the ability to connect with other people. And my fear for Gen Alpha is because they're being raised on screens, because they're being raised with that virtual assistant, will they learn how to be empathetic and engaging and drive a high level of emotional intelligence? That's my fear for that generation. And for me as a parent with two young kids, how do I ensure that they learn emotional intelligence? Because I believe that's the value that they're going to bring in their workforce in 20 years. So how do I ensure that that happens? And how do we reorient education to ensure that, we're teaching the table stakes of how to leverage and engage AI in any and everything you do, but how do we teach them how to be empathetic and how to leverage drive their level of self-awareness? And all those things that Daniel Goleman wrote about in 1988, the 5 aspects in his article, What Makes a Leader. How do we ensure that we're teaching that when they're typically in front of a device? So it is a fascinating problem, and I can't wait to see where they go. But I'll tell you directly to your question, it's all about embracing the new way of doing business, that new way of thinking, and not just going, sit down, shut up, and do what you're told, you special snowflake. This is how we do things here, right? That's not the answer.
Yep. That's not the answer. And it's really interesting. I do think the most skilled leaders will just be able to set their egos aside and recognize that they don't know better and letting other people make the call.
You have to. Think about what you and I do leading professional services organizations. We definitionally have dozens of people that are smarter than us that work for us. More than that, hundreds of people. So to be effective as a leader, if I'm getting my feelings hurt or feeling like I want to be the smartest person in the room at all times and every idea has to be mine, we never would have grown. Because guess what? I'm not good at all the things that I talked about at the top of this conversation. I'm smart enough and, again, have a high enough level of emotional intelligence to recognize that if I'm going to be successful, if I'm going to grow, I have to be the dumbest person in the room. And it's so important. And to your point, it's only going to get more important. And the role, ego has been written about and discussed since Marcus Aurelius, however many thousands of years ago. And ego is that powerful driver of, grit and driving to be successful and all those great intrinsic motivators. And if we allow that strength to become excess, right, it very quickly becomes a weakness.
Yep. I think that's spot on. So let's stay on the leadership thread for a second, but let's start to apply it to financial wellness, because our thing on the podcast is trying to help operators and entrepreneurs build their finance muscle because we think it's going to make them better operators in the long run. So in your experience, think about how important it is to be a good leader, consistent leader, firm into your values and beliefs. But business doesn't always go well, doesn't go according to plan. Sometimes other pressures start to feed into what's going on in decision-making, financial pressures. So what advice would you give to a leader who's trying to build a business that can almost guarantee you that if you're subscale, early stage, SMB, not every year is going to be a banger financial year, but you still need to be consistent as a leader if you want to keep it on the rails and keep your team engaged. So, if you kept the leadership hat on, how would you coach or mentor that person?
It's a fascinating problem that entrepreneurs have as they scale. And Zig Ziglar, who's a famed sales coach, leadership consultant, he used to say that people don't train their people in good times because they're too busy. And people don't train their people in bad times because there's no money. And what, of course, that means is, so what that means is we never invest in our people, ever. And, Mrs. Small Business Owner, Mr. SMB executive, if you want to grow, growth definitionally means you have to scale. And when we're entrepreneurs, this is why at the beginning, Matt, I was talking about going from an entrepreneur to an executive. When you're an entrepreneur, you do everything. And you are the heartbeat, the arms, the legs, the muscle, the brain, you're everything to the organization. And as you scale, the investment that you make in your people, engaging them, teaching them, growing them, getting out of this mindset of it's faster for me to do it myself. No, it's not. That doesn't scale. It's slower in the short term, but that investment of time has a return because next time they can do it themselves. So investing in your people and not letting that go by the wayside, whether that's teaching them to be a great leader, it's teaching them how to make good financial decisions on their own, whether that is teaching them the year-end close process so you don't have to do it yourself. So crazy idea, you can actually take a vacation. All of those things, choosing to invest in your people. As a small business owner, as an entrepreneur, your four most dangerous words, which are also the four most dangerous words for a leader, are I don't have time. And investing in radical prioritization and radically prioritizing your people is the key to you being successful. So my overarching piece of advice is whether you're in good times or bad times, you have to ensure that you are choosing to invest in your people such that you can grow. If you find yourself always doing and never developing, you will not scale.
Yep. And I think what you talked about in terms of the evolution of leadership and leadership styles and management styles and what the younger generations expect. When you say invest, what you're not saying is pay them more money, give them better. So you're not saying that, but that's not primary. That's not going to get it done on its own.
You're exactly right. It's a great call because it doesn't mean, oh, I need to give that guy 12% more or give that high performing gal 14% more. No, that's not what I'm saying. That investment is in your time. Your most valuable asset as a leader is your time. And when you choose to invest it in developing your people versus getting stuff done, that's the transformation that's critical, right? The secret sauce, the silver bullet, I jokingly use that term because there's never a silver bullet, but the secret to being an effective leader that can drive scale is you stop doing and start developing, right? I said that earlier. I mean, that's what that means. I start investing in my people and giving them that time and attention to help them learn that new skill, drive their EQ, teach them how to be a better leader, help get things out of the way so they can go solve problems. That's the trick. And I always tell my clients when I'm in this role in a consulting setting that people should be paid such that they feel they are getting a fair wage. People join companies, but they quit crappy managers. They don't leave for 6% more money because that 6% changes their life. They leave because they're not in a position that they feel that there's upside, there's growth, there's opportunity, there's development. And that is leadership. So when I say invest, it's about taking your time and investing in that individual and ensuring that they feel like this is a place that they can grow and develop their skills for their career. I mean, Daniel Pink wrote an awesome book called Drive. Very simply, what intrinsically motivates us as humans, what drives us? It's a sense of mastery, a sense of purpose, and a sense of autonomy. So if we can give our people those three things, we're going to be successful, and we're going to have people that want to be part of our organization and are going to stick around.
You hit a couple of key points. So one, to scale your business, it's not just about going to get more customers, because if you don't do what you just said, which is learn how to be a good allocator of not only financial capital, but human capital, and understanding the value of creating leverage in your organization, empowering your team, you can get all the customers you want. It's not going to work. You're going to give just as many away as you add. So if you want to make more money, like I think that what Robby just said is extremely important. Like you have to learn how to master that skill and buy into that, because you can't do it all by yourself. There's a limitation on how much you can actually scale your business without it. So
and it's spot on. And I think that the secret, or not the secret, the lie we tell ourselves is, I can just do more. And, for most entrepreneurs, Matt, I know I fall in this camp. I was always like, I have to outwork my talent. I mean, I'm not overly smart. I'm not overly attractive. I'm not overly athletic. So I just have to outwork my lack of talent. And that idea, that mantra, is a very good one. It's a great intrinsic motivator. But when you try to do that to scale, I'm going to outwork my size. I'm going to outwork my lack of people. I'm going to whatever. That doesn't work. As you said it perfectly. I'm going to give away more customers than I get. And you're going to see that plateau, and then you're going to see the dip.
Yep. When you're working with, it doesn't matter if it's a Fortune 500 executive or a small business owner operator, in your experience, how strong is their finance muscle? Like their ability to think about allocating capital? Is it scary for most of them, all of them, none of them? Like what's been your experience?
My experience, this is not a shot. So all of the listeners, this is not me, you catching shrapnel. It's very, very, very poor. I mean, and the answer is typically, oh, my buddy who I went to high school with was an accountant, so I'll have him kind of help me out on the side. But there's no understanding, especially at scale, the incredible instruments and opportunities that are there for small business or leaders. And I have seen consistently a very, very poor understanding of what real financial or the level of financial prowess that is required in order to scale. And really, that's where the big roles private equity play, is they bring that skill to you. And every company I've worked with that's taken on private equity or has a private equity partner will say that experience was jarring, because I went from knowing nothing to getting all of these terms thrown at me, and I had no idea what it meant. So that was a unnecessarily long answer to your question of, typically it's quite poor.
It's quick. It's typically poor. So I'm going to talk about some theories that I have for a few minutes. Do you think that that's the operator and the owner's fault, or do you think it's the stagnation of the finance and accounting industry and technology's fault, or is both?
It's both. And I empathize with the entrepreneur, the small business owner, because I was one. I'll tell you, you don't have time to sit around and think, right? We talked about, I don't have time. One of your priorities is not to sit around and learn and engage and get really crisp on networking capital and the difference between OPEX and CAPEX and cash flow analysis and needs and short-term requirements to fill that big order financially and bridging that 30-day window from when I sell it to when I get, that's all trial by fire. And if there was a company that could come alongside you and be whispering in your ear to help you understand that, or even better, Matt, on a dashboard, give you visual understanding of what's coming. What an incredible opportunity that I can then be empowered to make good decisions, because that it isn't just data in front of me, it's actionable insights and information that can drive my next move.
That's good. That's a great plug. So I think it's actually, if I had to weight who's responsible for it, I actually think it's more the industry than the entrepreneur. If you think about corporate structure, your clients, your Fortune 500 clients, finance and accounting is a G&A function. Your job is to support the revenue generating function of the business and the decision makers with data and financial information. It would never be tolerated or accepted to not give them the information in the format that they wanted to and answer all of their questions thoroughly so they felt completely informed. Would you agree with that?
Is that a real question? A real question. A perfect point. Come on. It's crazy. The role of an internal, whether it's FP&A or accounting or whatever, as you scale, they are it is machinery more than it is insight and creativity and question answering. It is, here's exactly what needs to get done. Here's what I'm going to go execute. And again, I don't blame the people in that organization. That's what they're held accountable to do. And inertia has kept them from being able to evolve and driving. You said this at the top of our conversation. When you have 30 years of bad systems that are, based on COBOL and C# and green screens, and I mean, it's really, really hard to move that Titanic. So, but yes, 100%, I agree with what you're saying.
Like you're going to satisfy the information needs of the CEO at a Fortune 500 company. No ifs, ands, or buts. If you don't do it, you're probably going to be out the door, right?
Right.
No tolerance for that. So then you think about like, all right, well, we want to serve in an outsourced capacity the CEO of a small business, but we're going to give the information the way that we want to. We're going to use balance sheets and P&Ls and cash flow statements and terminology and things that nobody understands. And we're just going to give it to them. And we're just going to say, this is what you should accept as like the best you can get, instead of dashboards, instead of understanding deeply, like, what does that small business owner want to see? What do they care about? What do they want to talk about? Nobody's having the same conversation. And like the accountability between those two scenarios I'm describing is very different. Like one is tolerated, one never would be.
Yeah. And let's remember the Fortune 500 CEO knows what question to ask. I mean, me, when I, owned and operated and was growing a small business, I didn't know what questions to ask. So even our great accounting team, I didn't know what I should have been thinking about. I didn't know what I didn't know. So I think the other side of that coin that you're saying is an organization like yours can not only say, here are the answers to your question, Mr. Client, but also here's the 3 things that a company at your size in your growth journey should be thinking about and should be aware of. Like, that's magic. That's the value of partnering with an organization like yours, where you're thinking about things that I don't even know I should be thinking about. And through that dialogue, I have the opportunity to learn so that I can make that transformation from a grinding, hustling entrepreneur to eventually, hopefully, somebody that's running a $150, $250 million organization. And I know what questions to ask because you taught me.
That's right. So it's education, right? So I think that's why I think it's more on the industry and the way they've served small business owners than it is the small business owner, because they need education. We should be the teachers in this, and just doing the accounting work is not enough. And do we do this perfectly every day? No. Do we know how it needs to be done? Do we have a good vision for it? 100%. So we'll get to that point, but we're in the minority, I think, of companies like ours that actually think about taking that level of responsibility. The rest are just going to kind of do it their way, and just that's going to be it. So
change, disruption, right? It's hard. If it was easy, everybody would do it.
Yes. All right, man. So you up for a couple rapid fire questions?
Right.
Yep. All right. You can't pick your own book, but if you had to pick a book for small business owners, operators to lead, to go level up on what it's like to run a business, what would it be?
Number one recommendation, not just for personal or for professional, also for personal, is Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's now 35 years old. I've read that book 5 times in my life. It has impacted me in 5 different ways every time I've read it. If you haven't read 7 Habits, put it on the top of your list. Read it today.
And if they did want to read Counter Mentor Leadership, where do they find it?
Go find it. If you've enjoyed the sound of my voice, go download the audio book on Audible. Find it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble.
What, did you do the voiceover yourself?
We did. So that's a fun story we don't have time for today. But yeah, the Pops and I read the book in the audio version. It's a ton of fun. We bring our own unique, crazy to it. So check it out. You can listen to it on Audible, wherever audiobooks and hard copy books are sold.
All right. If you could write another book to follow it up, what would it be about?
The criticality of culture, the role that culture and people play in driving growth. I've had this unique opportunity over the last 2 years to be part of a rapidly growing organization and lead people through this growth. And the most important thing is how you care and feed culture. So the next book will be on culture, and will be on not just what it is and the role of it and cultural transformation. Kind of all the books have been written, but very specifically using our story as an example, how you care and feed culture to spur growth. So that's going to be the next.
Right on, man. All right. You want to leave a small business owner with one thought or one thing you wish that they knew about their job day to day, what would it be?
I'm going to leave everyone with some encouragement. We turn the page every year as entrepreneurs to a new year, and we sit down and we start that new year, new you. 2 weeks in, we give up on our goals. So for all the leaders, all the entrepreneurs, the small business owners, you're here in the first quarter. You have a lot in front of you. Do not allow yourself to get caught in that, well, I failed. Like, look, you still have the rest of the race in front of you. I just want to encourage. I know multiple times in my career, I've gotten to mid-January, early February and gotten frustrated and gone, oh, I'm not going to be able to do it this year. You have the whole rest of the year in front of you. So invest in people, choose to invest your time in your great people. That's going to drive scale.
Right on, man. It's sage advice. All right, Robby, this has been fun, man. And we'll have to catch up soon for a beer in person too. But congrats on the deal and wishing you luck in the rest of the first quarter, man. And, we'll check in sometime down the road, but we appreciate you giving us your time and joining the pod.
Love it. Thanks for the invite, Matt.
All right, man. Have a good one. Cheers.